a political and public affairs analyst, Victor Okhai, is in the studio with us and will be running through the governorship election in Osun State with us. Good to have you on Newsday.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Are you surprised going from, seeing the outcome of the Osun elections from, like we heard, dancing senator to now dancing governor?
Well, I'm not going to say I'm that surprised, to be honest, because it was a close call the last time. And what would have made a difference is if the incumbent had, really, really gone out and out, if you like, to really do things for the people of Osun. Not everyone is so happy, and there are political problems also within the state. With the Minister for the Interior, for instance, who would have been a very strong supporter, almost like in a different camp, or certainly not behind him, then obviously that's a little more than 305 votes, which is a difference between, the last election and now. Maybe if he had that, he would have, but yeah, so.
Very good. Now, Senator Adeleke missed a crucial debate session organized by the Arise News just before the elections, if you remember, and he was criticized for that, and now he's attaining the mantle of leadership. And also, President Buhari also missed out on a crucial debate organized by the media before becoming president in his first term, if I remember correctly. So what then is the relevance of debates if those who miss it, attain the mantle of leadership, as it were?
Well, let's be honest. Debates are useful, but I think what's more important is what you do afterwards when you get into office. People may opt in or out of debates for various reasons. Some, if they think, but that's not the case here because Arise is objective, I know, and whatever the team is, But it's important. Your team would look at you and look at your strengths and weaknesses. There are people who have oratorial prowess, if you like, who can speak you into the ground. And there are those who know that that's not their strength, okay? And so a good strategy team would look at you vis-a-vis your opponents, look at your strengths, look at your weaknesses, and decide, is this going to add value to your candidature or is it going to run you aground? And if you think it's not going to add any value, if I'm in the strategy team, I'll simply say opt out, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Indeed. Well, we had quite the number of guests yesterday, when the election was unfolding, and I'm trying to remember his name, but it evades me right now. But I remember he said that this election people were casting their votes based on popularity and not necessarily based on competence. And also we have some analysts saying that the reason that Senator Adeleke has emerged governor is because he opted for a Christian ticket. I'm wondering what you think was his biggest edge, what gave him the biggest edge? Or was it a case of the highest bidder, because there were also allegations of massive vote buying, even though it was covert?
Okay, so first let me deal with the last point you made. Vote buying was on all sides. People were they were all doing it, So for me, it's not really an issue because I'm also aware that some people collected money and voted their conscience, which is a healthy development, if you ask me. Now, the first part of your question had to do with, what was it again? I'm trying to remember.
Not voting based on...
Okay, what gave him that competitive advantage, if you like? Well, you have to remember that first, Adeleke is from a political family. His father was a senator. And so his older brother, Sherbama, was also extremely popular. The late, what's his first name now, but Adeleke as well. He didn't, he died. And then he's in the Senate. But from the last election, you would have seen that from the gap, some would argue, for whatever reason, that he may have won that election. But it's neither here nor there. INEC has the last say. The courts have, whatever they decide, that's what the result is. So when you look at it, I don't know how many elections have been that close. You know, a gap that is less than 500 in a whole state of millions. Okay? Well, you might argue that the electorate, the number, not in so many millions as such, but I mean, that was too close to call. Okay? So when you see that, then it's clear that he's a very strong, if you want to use the word popular, what are the things that make you popular? He's not exactly a philanthropist. He's not exactly in that mode. You might say he's a happy-go-lucky person, but I mean, it's better to be happy than to be sad, you know. But more importantly, I think he has behind him also a strong team. What you need in leadership is you to be visionary and to be able to put together a great team around you. If you have a great team and you're able to provide what do I call it now? Stability, and people can trust you, then I can assure you that you will be able to, you will succeed. But if the people don't trust you and there's no stability, then you will struggle, no matter how brilliant your ideas are. And so what he had going for him was the fact that it was Oyetola's election to lose. To lose in what sense? Because, you know, having had a close call, you know, the last election, he would have done everything possible. Sometimes our politicians take things for granted. You are in the state and you assume traditionally this is a PDP state, or traditionally this is an APC state. And so you tend to take the electorate for granted. You assume that it would always go your way. But that is not always the case. And so what the people of Osun have done, like what happened in Oyo, you know, because Oyo was a shocker as well, you know. Makinde didn't have a pedigree that was out there that we knew of. But what it simply meant was, you know, right now, and that's a lesson for politicians, I don't know if it's too early to say that now, there is a consequence for quote-unquote bad behavior. Bad behavior in this case, if you make the people happy, then they reward you. But if you make them unhappy, then you pay dearly for it. So, I think that's the case. I'm not so sure it was necessarily about religion, because it's almost evenly balanced in the state, you know, and so...
Very good, Victor. Yes, you made your point regarding Oyetola should have consolidated his gains, despite the very close call, the first instance. But when you take a look at it, there were some other factors as well. I think he had a run-in with Rauf Oregbeshola. That one was, and I also wanted to add, like, look, was APC actually prepared for this election? If you go back inside, you know, were they actually prepared for this election? And we're also talking about the issue of, like, look, being laid back and, you know, still basking in that victory, as it were, the initial stage.
There is no party among the big parties that was not prepared for this election. If you permit me, and Ashiwaju, for instance, this was a very important election for him. Oyetola is his candidate, his, I'm told, relative, you know. And not only that, you remember that there's Oregbeshola on the one side, and Tinubu
him bringing his own candidate as well.
Exactly.
That's also a factor here.
So when you look at it, there was Tinubu had a point to make, and so he would have done everything to support Oyetola. The party itself going into this election, because it's an off-cycle election, and you know, like they say, the morning shows the day, okay? And if you begin to run losses early, then it's a bad sign. And so you have to be prepared. I'm sure they brought in the very best. The governors came. I remember Ganduje speaking to the Muslims in the state and saying every Muslim in Osun State should vote for Oyetola. That was also weighing in. And, you know, by implication, I was also speaking to probably people of northern descent who are Muslims there to say, look, your bulk votes, give it to Oyetola. So they came in fully prepared. PDP, on the other hand, came in also fully prepared because they all wanted to prove a point. And so I think in the end, the people spoke.
Well, it's definitely insightful. You're saying they both wanted to prove a point. I'm just wondering what you think the implications will be now that APC has lost in Osun State, and Osun was very crucial ahead of the 2023 general elections. So what do you anticipate is going to happen on the part of the ruling party, and I mean the APC on a national scale?
I am a bit worried for them. Worried in the sense that there was a need to consolidate here. You know that governors are very influential during elections. And being a new governor, he would, I mean, there's a lot going for him right now, okay? So whatever they had hoped to gain is going to be difficult. I was listening to Babakir, the former SGF, speaking on your station, and he was speaking. I also read, before I came, the statement by Adeleke, his response to the election. He quoted from the book of Daniel, chapter 4, verse 17. There is a God that willeth in the affairs of men. When it's convenient, you do that. You know, it could have been quoting from Shakespeare, you know. But so it was a cryptic, you know, response, pregnant and full of, you know what they say, my enemy's enemy is my friend. You know what I mean? So, and that's going to be playing out. You can't rule it out. In politics, particularly in Nigerian politics, you see, it's about interest. Okay? So, what is going to happen right now? From listening to Babakir, he said, no person in the Christian communities, because of the Muslim ticket, you know, in the APC, would, I'm quoting him, it's not my opinion, it's not, you know, it may not be as widely spread, but that's him speaking, and probably as a leader from the north, you know, of northern Christians, from the north, and they put a leader as well in his own right. He said none of them would vote for that ticket. He's talking about APC persons, you know, in the party. So that already is like, it's a bit of some crack. So it therefore means that, you know, there are certain things that are critical. You know, religion is a factor. You cannot ignore it. Ethnicity is a factor. Okay, you cannot ignore it. Issues as well, you know, depending on what it is at the point in time. Like you might say ASU, you might look at, you know, the security situation in the country, the economy. All of that will come to play to varying degrees, obviously. But again, it depends on where you are, you know, in the country. So all of that is going to play. So I think that there are implications, you know, from this election and from the decisions that have been taken by these parties in their choice of candidates and running mates. And you can see that in the PDP as well. You know, as soon as Atiku declared, not even when he won, the fact that he declared against what some of them had assumed would be that the agreement that probably, I call it a gentleman's agreement because it's not constitutional, that party would transfer to the south. And you saw it almost decimated the party, you know. So what they're doing now is fence mending. And when you're mending fences, it means your fence is broken, you know. Reptiles might come in. There might be, or people might escape, you know what I mean? So I expected that perhaps APC would look at that and also, as you say, okay, let me not get into all that, but also look at that and see how they can. But they've done their calculations, and when you do your calculations, you throw it out there and see how it turns out. So we're watching. There's a lot, there are implications for every decision, but more importantly, there are consequences for the decisions that the various parties have taken right now. How this will play out in the various states will depend on what the peculiar situations are in these states. Yeah. In a state, in the core north, for instance, a Muslim ticket wouldn't mean anything. In places where you have security implications and probably some people, maybe Christians, are feeling that they have been, that they are, that they're feeling very insecure, or they feel very insecure, then there might be fear. So for me, if you ask me again, it's not the issue of who is, whether it's a Muslim, Christian, should ordinarily, if things are normal, not be a problem at all. Because after all, okay, this is a Christian ticket right now. In Osun State, there is almost 50-50, okay? There are states where, in Edo, you have Muslims. Edo North, you have plenty of Muslims there, But it doesn't matter whether it's Christian or, because they don't have the problems that you have in certain parts of the country. So all of these calculations are going to play. I hope the strategists have sat down and looked at all of this in taking the decisions, but more importantly, that the candidates themselves, listened to what this analysis were, or took this analysis, bore it in mind in taking the final decision on who they chose as their running mate.
Very good. And briefly, Victor, there's been a lot of criticisms here, but are we running issue-based political campaigns in Nigeria realistically, or is it just about the usual empty promises and, of course, the money, financial inducement, as it were?
I'm afraid that it's no longer business as usual. Yes, in the beginning, it was about money. People are hungry now, let's be honest. And it was Shakespeare that said, "He that is down needs fear no fall. But he that is up ever must have God to be his guide." When you're down and out, the money is not going to make any difference anymore. And remember, we have history on our side. History in the sense that people have voted once, twice, thrice, unbroken. And they have seen the trend over the years. And so now they are saying to themselves and to their people, let them bring the money. And they're also listening to what civil society is saying and what the media is saying as well. If they give you money, take it. It belongs to you, but vote your conscience. Because they have found out that there have been, that the politicians are serial disappointers. You understand? They have failed them over and over and over. They have seen them because they still keep coming back to the same community.
Yeah.
And so they're not fooled anymore. And we saw a bit of that in Osun. So, and that's going to play out going forward. So issues are very important right now. Why? If you're coming to me, if my people are being killed and you're not guaranteeing me security, then, because there are implications. I can't go to the farm. It's not just about killing my people. It means I can't go to the farm. I might get kidnapped. I might be hunted down like a rabbit, and I cannot sleep well at night. Even when I call security forces, I'm not guaranteed that they'll be there for me. Then that matters. Okay? And then I'll begin to do a bit of trend analysis. Where are you coming from? Can I take your word to the bank? Mm-hmm. Can I truly trust you? Okay? And so people are becoming more discerning. And so issues are going to matter going forward.
Very good. And on that note, Victor Okhai, public affairs analyst, or of course political analyst as well, I'd like to thank you for your thoughts on the just recently concluded Osun polls. Good to have you with us.